Some cars made headlines for their speed, others for their beauty, but these, they made headlines for being deadly. Today we're looking at 12 of the most dangerous American cars ever made. Vehicles that didn't just perform poorly in crash tests, they left a trail of real injuries, lawsuits, and fatalities. Let's break down the facts. Number 12. Chevrolet Blazer. Launched in 1983 as a smaller alternative to the full-size K5 Blazer, the S10-based Chevrolet Blazer was marketed as a nimble, rugged SUV built for both off-road adventures and suburban families. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, it became a popular choice among American consumers looking for utility in a compact package. But beneath its appeal lay a brewing safety crisis. Early two-door Blazers, especially those built in the 1980s and early 1990s, had a dangerously high center of gravity and narrow track width, a combination that made them extremely prone to rollovers during emergency maneuvers or sharp turns. These vehicles lacked the stability of newer SUVs, and rollover accidents became tragically common. In the late 1990s, studies by the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, IIHS, and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA, confirmed that the two-door Blazer had one of the highest driver death rates in its category. Critics pointed to GM's reluctance to implement design changes that could have improved stability, such as widening the wheelbase or lowering the center of gravity. Despite growing concerns and safety criticisms, GM continued producing the Blazer with minimal changes to its core structure. It wasn't until the mid-2000s, after years of legal battles, insurance claims, and public scrutiny, that the model was discontinued and replaced by safer, more modern SUV platforms. The Chevrolet Blazer's legacy is a cautionary tale about the dangers of early SUV engineering. Its popularity masked serious design flaws that cost lives. While the nameplate was revived in 2019 on a completely new crossover platform, the original Blazer remains a reminder of a time when style and sales often came at the expense of safety. Number 11. Ford Mustang II. The Ford Mustang II marked a drastic shift in the Mustang's legacy. Launched in 1974 during the height of the oil crisis and increasing government pressure for cleaner, more fuel-efficient vehicles, the Mustang II abandoned its muscle car roots in favor of compact dimensions and fuel economy. Ford based it on the subcompact Pinto platform, a decision that would later invite serious safety concerns. The Mustang II featured a smaller body and lighter frame, but with those changes came a weaker chassis and reduced structural integrity. Safety tests revealed troubling results. During collisions, the car crumpled in critical areas, and its narrow frame did little to protect passengers. Handling was also an issue. The car's weight distribution, combined with low-grade suspension components, led to unpredictable steering response, particularly during sudden maneuvers or emergency braking. Although the Mustang II sold well initially, even winning Motor Trend's Car of the Year in 1974, public and industry opinion quickly soured. Owners and testers alike complained about its sluggish performance, poor crashworthiness, and cost-cutting build quality. As competition improved safety standards across the board, the Mustang II was increasingly viewed as outdated and unsafe. By 1979, Ford replaced it with a new generation built on the more stable Fox platform. While the Mustang name survived, the Mustang II's legacy remains controversial. It exemplified how quickly a performance icon could be diluted under regulatory and market pressure, and how safety was sometimes left in the rearview mirror. Number 10. Dodge Ram Van. Coming off the heels of the safety-compromised Mustang II, you'd think automakers would have taken crash protection more seriously by the 1970s, but then there was the Dodge Ram Van, a vehicle that put practicality and cost efficiency over passenger safety year after year. Introduced in 1971, the Ram Van featured a cab-forward design that maximized cargo and interior space by pushing the driver and front passenger seats almost directly above the front axle. While this layout was great for maneuverability and loading capacity, it proved disastrous in crash tests. In frontal collisions, there was virtually no crumple zone between the occupants and the point of impact, meaning the driver bore the brunt of any head-on crash. Through the 1980s and 1990s, safety organizations and consumer advocates repeatedly called out the Ram Van's outdated structure. Unlike newer vans that began incorporating modern safety features like reinforced cabins and collapsible steering columns, the Ram Van clung to its original 1970s framework, making it a relic in an era of rapid safety innovation. Even as competitors evolved, The Ram van stayed mostly the same until its discontinuation in 2003. Its prolonged production run and lack of major structural updates made it one of the most stubborn holdouts in the shift toward safer vehicle design. Ironically, just 1 year after the Mustang II's Fox body replacement, GM introduced the Pontiac Fiero, another vehicle that promised innovation but ended up revealing a whole different set of safety flaws. Where the Ram van failed to evolve, the Fiero tried to leap forward and caught fire doing it. Number 9. Pontiac Fiero. If the Dodge Ram van was a relic from the past that refused to change, the Pontiac Fiero was the opposite. A bold experiment in futuristic design that ended up going up in flames. Literally. When GM launched the Fiero in 1984, it was marketed as a revolutionary sports car for the everyday driver. It featured a mid-engine layout, lightweight plastic body panels, and sporty styling that made it look like a baby Ferrari. But underneath that sleek exterior was a rushed, underpowered, and ultimately dangerous machine. Early Fieros were plagued by serious reliability issues, most infamously engine fires. Due to poorly designed connecting rods, leaking valve covers, and compromised coolant systems, thousands of Fieros became rolling fire hazards. Some caught fire while being driven, others spontaneously combusted while parked and turned off. By 1987, GM had received reports of over 260 fires and finally issued a recall covering more than 125,000 vehicles. Pontiac initially resisted acknowledging the scope of the problem, blaming owners for poor maintenance. But internal documents and pressure from safety regulators eventually forced the company's hand. Ironically, by the time GM had resolved many of the car's mechanical flaws and introduced a better V6 engine, the Fiero's reputation was already toast. It was discontinued in 1988, and today it's remembered less for its innovation and more for how spectacularly it burned. The Fiero's fiery demise marked a cautionary tale in how innovation without proper execution can backfire. Literally. And while GM tried to push boundaries, Jeep was still relying on an old warhorse that had its own dangerous legacy. Number 8. Jeep CJ5. The Jeep CJ5 may be beloved by off-road enthusiasts and military surplus collectors, but it holds a grim distinction, one of the most rollover-prone vehicles ever sold to the public. Based on the legendary World War II Jeep design, the CJ5 stayed in production for nearly 3 decades, with only modest changes. Its short wheelbase, high ground clearance, and narrow track were perfect for crawling over rocks and trudging through mud, but on paved roads, that same setup was a recipe for disaster. Emergency maneuvers, lane changes, or sharp turns at moderate speed could easily lead to tip-overs. In the early 1980s, Consumer Reports conducted extensive testing on the CJ5 and issued a damning verdict. The vehicle rolled over in more than half of its high-speed avoidance maneuvers. The magazine called it unsafe for public roads and even advocated for its removal from the market. Lawsuits followed, and public concern grew, especially as accident reports highlighted fatalities linked to rollovers. Despite this, the CJ5 remained popular until it was finally discontinued in 1983. It was eventually replaced by the slightly larger and more stable CJ7, and later the Jeep Wrangler, which incorporated significant safety upgrades. Since the CJ5's legacy remains a stark reminder of how a vehicle's off-road heritage doesn't always translate well to real-world driving conditions. Up next, a vehicle that looked tough and fearless, but turned out to be a silent killer in disguise. Number 7. Chevrolet Vega. The Chevrolet Vega was supposed to be GM's compact car revolution, a sleek, affordable rival to Japanese imports. Instead, it became a cautionary tale in cutting corners. At its heart was a lightweight aluminum engine block without iron liners, designed to save weight and improve fuel economy, but in practice, it warped under heat and stress, leading to frequent overheating, loss of compression, and sudden engine failure. Beyond mechanical issues, the Vega's safety record was troubling. In crash tests, its unibody structure offered poor protection, especially in front-end collisions. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration logged hundreds of complaints tied to safety defects, including brake failures, fuel system issues, and structural corrosion. In fact, rust was so rampant that Vegas in northern climates often began falling apart within just a few winters. While over 2 million units were sold, the Vega's rapid decline in reputation and a wave of warranty claims cost GM millions. Today, the Vega is remembered less for innovation and more for how quickly it turned from Motor Trend's 1971 Car of the Year into one of the most notorious flops in American automotive history. Number 6. Ford Bronco 2. Compact and rugged, the Ford Bronco 2 looked like a downside adventurer's dream. But it hid a fatal flaw. Built on the same short wheelbase platform as the Ford Ranger, the Bronco 2 had a high center of gravity and narrow track width. This made it dangerously prone to rollover accidents, even during routine lane changes or evasive maneuvers. A Consumer Reports investigation in the late 80s estimated that Bronco 2 had a rollover rate of more than 3 times the average for passenger vehicles. According to internal Ford memos later revealed in court, engineers were aware of the risk during development. Still, the vehicle went to market largely unchanged. By the time production ended in 1990, the Bronco 2 had been involved in over 260 deaths related to rollover accidents. Ford reportedly paid over $113 million in settlements to victims and families. The model was quietly discontinued and replaced by the Ford Explorer, a vehicle with a wider stance and improved stability. While the Explorer fared better, the Bronco 2's legacy remains a grim chapter in SUV safety history, one where design compromises proved tragically deadly. Number 5. Chevrolet Cobalt. The Chevrolet Cobalt became infamous as the face of one of the deadliest automotive scandals in U.S. history. At the core of the issue was a faulty ignition switch that could slip out of the run position while driving, shutting off the engine. And with it, power steering, power brakes, and even the airbags. The result? Drivers suddenly lost control in critical moments. The defect was linked to at least 124 deaths and 275 injuries, as confirmed by a federal compensation fund. Even more disturbing, GM had known about the issue for years but delayed a full recall. When the truth emerged, the company was forced to recall 2.6 million vehicles and paid nearly $900 million in settlements and fines. The scandal triggered a congressional investigation and led to widespread reform in how recalls are handled. The Cobalt wasn't just a flawed car. It became a symbol of corporate negligence, forever altering public trust in GM's safety practices. Number 4. Ford Explorer and Firestone tires. The modern Explorer and Firestone tire scandal was one of the most deadly and publicized product failures in modern automotive history. As SUVs gained popularity in the 1990s, Ford's Explorer was a bestseller, often equipped with Firestone's Wilderness AT tires. But those tires had a fatal flaw. They were prone to tread separation at highway speeds. The result? Over 200 deaths and 700 injuries were linked to tire blowouts that caused the Explorer to roll over, especially due to the SUV's high center of gravity. The issue became so widespread that it triggered one of the largest tire recalls in U.S. history, affecting 6.5 million Firestone tires. Ford and Firestone publicly blamed each other, Ford citing tire defects and Firestone pointing to Ford's recommended low tire pressure. But in the end, it was the drivers and passengers who paid the ultimate price. The controversy led to new federal regulations, including the Tread Act, which overhauled tire safety and recall procedures. Number 3. Chevrolet Corvair. Before the Pinto or Cobalt scandals, there was the Chevrolet Corvair, an economy car that became ground zero in America's vehicle safety movement. The first-generation Corvair featured a rear-mounted engine and swing-axle suspension that made it prone to oversteer and sudden loss of control, particularly during emergency maneuvers. In 1965, consumer advocate Ralph Nader published Unsafe at Any Speed, focusing on the Corvair's flaws. The book accused GM of putting style and profit ahead of driver safety. His findings, later supported by a government report, linked early Corvair models to dozens of fatal crashes, many involving rollovers or spinouts. Though GM updated the suspension design in 1964 to improve handling, the damage was done. The Corvair became a turning point in automotive history, helping spark the creation of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and laying the groundwork for modern car safety standards. Number 2. AMC Gremlin. The AMC Gremlin was marketed as a quirky, affordable compact car, but it came with serious safety flaws that made it one of the most dangerous small cars of its time. Designed quickly in response to growing competition from imports, The Gremlin was built on a shortened Hornet platform, essentially chopping off the rear end to save development time and cost. Unfortunately, this shortcut compromised the car's balance, handling, and structural integrity. Crash tests revealed poor protection in side and rear impacts, and the car's substandard fuel system design made it vulnerable to fires during rear-end collisions. Similar to the infamous Ford Pinto, several lawsuits in the 1970s alleged that the Gremlin's gas tank placement contributed to deadly fires and otherwise survivable crashes. One case in Illinois awarded over $6 million in damages after a Gremlin burst into flames, killing a teenage girl. Safety advocates also criticized the lack of standard safety features like anti-siphon valves, fuel tank shields, and proper crumple zones. Despite repeated concerns, AMC made only minimal changes throughout its production run. Though it sold over 670 units, the Gremlin's reputation for unpredictable handling, poor crash performance, and fire risks has earned it a permanent place in the conversation about cost-cutting gone too far. It remains a classic example of how chasing a quick market response can come at a deadly price. Number 1. Ford Pinto. Few vehicles in American automotive history are as notorious as the Ford Pinto. Introduced in 1971, the Pinto was Ford's answer to the growing popularity of small, affordable imports like the Volkswagen Beetle and Toyota Corolla. Developed in just 25 months, nearly half the usual time, the Pinto was rushed to market with aggressive, cost-cutting measures that would later prove catastrophic. The Pinto featured a rear-mounted gas tank positioned just inches from the rear bumper. In low-speed rear-end collisions, the tank was prone to rupture and ignite, leading to fires that claimed dozens of lives. The issue wasn't just the defect, it was that Ford allegedly knew about it. Internal memos revealed that Ford had performed a cost-benefit analysis weighing at the price of fixing the flaw, about $11 per car, against the potential costs of injury lawsuits. The company opted not to make the changes. By 1977, investigative journalism, especially from Mother Jones magazine, exposed the Pinto's design flaws and Ford's internal deliberations. Public outrage followed, and the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration opened an investigation. In 1978, Ford recalled 1.5 million Pintos in one of the largest safety recalls in history. The Pinto's legacy extended far beyond engineering. It became a landmark case in business ethics, taught in law and MBA programs as a grim example of valuing profits over human lives. While the car was discontinued in 1980 and replaced by the Ford Escort, its impact lingers as a cautionary tale in corporate responsibility and automotive safety. These weren't just bad cars, they were lethal mistakes, rolling reminders that cutting corners can cost lives. Have you ever owned or ridden in one of these? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more hard-hitting car history stories.